morning. My name is Richard Woodward, and I'm conducting the next session for the next hour and a half. And I'd like to start by saying thank you to the organizers for inviting me to speak about the world's #1 marketing and business development tool. I'm obviously talking about events. Events, as you'll run through over the next hour and a half, I think that, as I said, the #1 marketing and business development tool, and I'll explain why and how you bring that to life for your sponsors and partners. My own experience with events, I was just thinking about it earlier, it was some 32 years ago since I left business school. For some of you, that actually might be a lifetime, which is kind of a bit scary. But what I was thinking about, how events have been weaved through all the roles that I've had, all the organizations I've worked with and all my clients. So to give you an idea, my very first job was in the very unsexy world of working for a retirement home company in the UK. It was the opposite of Mercedes Fashion Week. But there, we used to sponsor lawn bowls, and it was 32 years ago. It was my first sponsorship. Don't laugh, it was very productive. From there, I went to the Royal Automobile Club, where we were involved with motor racing. From there, I went as marketing manager of KPMG, where we used events a lot to really engage our clients and prospects to demonstrate our expertise and build relationships. And then I did the first best thing that I've ever done in my life. I moved to Australia. And there, I was sponsorship manager at the Sydney Opera House, which was all about events, and then spent 6 years at the Commonwealth Bank when they were a nicer organization than they are today, and as sponsorship manager and brand manager there. And again, events were central to what we're doing. You'd see the cricket sponsorships, the women's cricket sponsorships, that kind of thing. From there, I moved to Stadium Australia, again, heavily involved with events. And then I did the second best thing that I've ever done in my life, is I set up my own organization. And what I did is, when I was at the Combank, every day organizations used to approach us for sponsorship. And what I realized was that there was thousands of these organizations. And whilst most of them had a good story, the problem was the person in front of me wasn't very good at business development. So I saw an opportunity. And back 15 years ago, I wrote a first workshop, which at the time I called Attract More Sponsors. Since then, the last 15 years, things have grown hugely. Basically, what I'm doing now is 3 things: facilitating strategic planning sessions for organizations, training their business development teams around my book and workshop called Business Development That Works, and also training and working with organizations based on how to attract and retain sponsors around my book and workshop of the same name. And I'm very lucky. I've got some fantastic organizations who, all of them, I was just thinking, are in some way involved with events. So if I think some of my arts clients, like the Museum of Contemporary Art, Queensland Symphony, West Australian Ballet, Queensland Ballet, all heavily into events. A lot of my charity clients, this week I was with Canteen, Youth Cancer Charity, talking about National Bandana Day, one of their big fundraising events. And you've got leukemia with the world's greatest shave and things like that. And then there's 2 weeks' time, I'm with all the A-League clubs doing a workshop. Again, that's all about events in soccer. And then, of course, there's the event companies themselves. I had 7 years working with Diversified, doing their advisory panels, training their business development teams across their shows. And also there's the attractions, like Centennial Park, working with their events team. We're trying to bring events to the park. So all the people I'm working with, in some way or the other, there's events somewhere weaved into that. And as I said, it is the best, I think, marketing tool. And what I want to do today is really cover 3 things. I'm going to talk to you about successful business development teams. If you're engaged in attracting sponsors and partners, you're in a business development role as part of a business development team. So what are the kind of things that you need to have in place to be successful? Then I've chosen 2 specific topics which I think are highly appropriate in terms of my observations of working with companies and events. The first one is around value. Creating value, selling the value, and helping people realize the value, because I see that doesn't happen very often. And I also want to talk to you about servicing and retention. This is an area I'm spending more and more time working with people on. There is no point bringing any partners on board if you don't have a strategy to retain them. So I want to cover those as specific topics. But before that, I think we've got to talk about another topic, and that is why events? This is a really important question, because what I observe is when people go to sell events, they go straight into selling their event without having sold the category first. There's no point plowing into why someone should sponsor your conference or your fashion show or your festival when you haven't established the person in front of you's appetite for events. The person you're pitching to, have they been to an event? What kind of events have they been to? Do they think it's a worthwhile tool, marketing tool, and want to hear from you? Or have they just done an event and it didn't work and they don't really want to hear from you? You've got to sell the category first. And I think it's also useful thinking about what the alternative to events is or are. So let's just run through a scenario. What might happen when you go home this evening? When you go home this evening, the first thing you might do is check your postbox. And in that postbox will be, and it's called junk mail for a reason, okay? People in direct mail get excited about a 2% response rate. That is a 98% failure rate and a shitload of trees cut down at the same time. So after you've checked your post, you might walk in your front door and the phone will ring. I don't know about you, but I don't answer the phone unless I know who it is. Why? Because experience tells me it's not in my interest. Because at that time of night, it'll be from a call center from an Australian company that in their brand advertising claims to be proudly Australian, but not so proud that actually hire someone in this country to speak to you in the language you can understand at a time that's convenient for you. And then you might decide to watch television. TV advertising, so 1990s. I mean, who the hell watches adverts these days? Netflix, YouTube, we record it and we just run through the ads in terms of just going straight through them so we don't watch them. So direct mail, telesales, mainstream advertising, and of course then we have the internet. And my favorite emails are the ones that come in from search engine optimization companies saying to me, Richard, we've observed that you're not getting enough presence for your keywords. I'm thinking, this is interesting because you found me. So what's the problem? And I know I'm getting a lot of traction for my keywords. And by the way, I've just put search engine optimization companies in, and you're not on the first page. So you're not even very good at what you do. So what is the alternative to all these other forms of marketing? It is events. Why events? These are the reasons I believe events are the best marketing tool. Let me talk you through them, and you might want to reflect on your own organization in terms of what you tell the people, sponsors, partners, etc., exhibitors when you engage them. Number one, time. This is not a 30-second advertisement that you're turning the volume down. This is a chance to engage with a brand. If it's at a festival for a day, it might be at a concert for an evening, a conference for 3 days. It's time for the sponsor's brand to be assimilated into the whole kind of ecosystem of that particular event. So events provide time for sponsors to communicate and for people to understand their brand messages. But it's also about mindset. When people come to a conference like today, you're in a mindset of looking for the right ideas, looking for new ideas. You're looking for the brands that can connect with you around the same values and areas of interest. When you go back to your office next week, you might not be ready for a phone call. You'll be busy. You might want to hear from someone selling a particular opportunity for you because you're not in the right mindset. So people are in the right mindset at events. But it's also about interaction. Businesses, so many businesses are based on interaction. This is people to people, people to products, and people to brands. And you can't do that on a television or a direct mail campaign. This is about getting face-to-face with people. People buy from people in so many businesses. It's people that make decisions. Get in front of those people, and you do that at events. And it also lends itself, obviously, to the 5 senses. It's thinking about sponsors and partners that have a sensory perspective, sitting in the car, listening to the speakers, tasting the coffee, tasting the drinks. You can't do that through the other forms of marketing communication. So it's thinking about brands that lend themselves to a sensory experience, make great sponsors and partners for events. But what you're really selling, and this is the exact words you need to say to a sponsor or partner, is we can help you put your brand in its desired context. So let me give you an example. I've done a lot of work with arts organizations. So here's 2 scenarios. I can stand tonight in a bottle shop in Bondi Junction, and I can hold out in front of me a bottle of a French champagne, and I can ask you if you want to sample it. Or you could have exactly the same product sampled at the Degas exhibition at the National Gallery with the French ambassador and a whole bunch of kind of French people and people who you want to sell your audience to. Same product, 2 completely different contexts. The language you have to use when you're approaching sponsors and partners is to say, look, let's talk about the desired context of your brand. We can help you to put your brand in that desired context. It's also about campaigns. What I notice when I observe people selling conferences and events and festivals is they tend to sell the conference, which lasts for 3 days, the festival that lasts for a couple of weeks, or the concert that lasts for a day. The needs of brands are ongoing. You immediately increase value of your offer by selling a 12-month marketing campaign of which the event is the pinnacle of the interaction. The needs of brands are ongoing. You always build a campaign and sell a 12-month interaction, because immediately the value's gone up rather than selling a day. But it's also about proof. So this is highly topical at the moment with the Royal Commission on Banks going on. So when I was at the Commonwealth Bank, I used to sit behind a glass door in focus groups, listening to all the Commonwealth Bank customers talking about the CommBank. it was, shall I say, overwhelmingly negative, okay? For all the reasons that you're kind of hearing today, not today, at the moment in terms of the commission. However, when we would do a sponsorship, and we might say have a cricket clinic, where the client's children, sons, daughters, will come along and have a clinic from the professional players. At the end of that, you'd have a parent coming up to you and a customer going, wow, that was fantastic. Can I just say thank you so much the bank's doing this. It's just great you're doing it. It was the only time you ever heard any positive comments. So the problem with brands is they claim something, they don't demonstrate it. And a sponsorship is a way of actually demonstrating, and if you demonstrate it, someone actually might believe it because they've experienced it. The classic one at the moment, and I cannot believe which agency advised Westpac to do this, but at the moment on television there's an advert for Westpac where David Bowie, Heroes, classic song being played in the background, picture of the Sydney Harbour Bridge, and Westpac seeming to claim that it's some kind of heroic organisation. When I first saw that advert, I kind of almost had to force myself from reaching from a bucket to throw up. As a Westpac customer, I thought, what are you doing? I actually quite like you as a brand. Now I've seen that ad, I'm just thinking this is ridiculous. You're claiming to be something, some heroes, well, there's a royal commission going on, timing completely inappropriate. So sponsorship provides proof. You're claiming to be the leading player in the market. Where are you in that conference? Where are you? Because I can see your competitor, they were there. Where is the presence if you're claiming to be a leading player? Events provide the opportunity for proof, and proof always goes beyond claim. So, just to go back one, so what I'm suggesting to you, in all your documentation, I believe, maybe even in the appendix, you should have one page which explains all these things. Because you may, not always, but you may need to talk to someone in front of you of why events. Because on their table, they will have a proposal from a radio company, a digital company. They'll have a proposal from maybe mainstream advertising, TV advertising. And at some point, you might need to pull that out and say, look, let's just remind ourselves on the power of events. Do you agree with that? Having agreed with that, now let's talk about our event. If you go straight into your event, they might turn around and go, at the end of it, yeah, but events don't work for us anyway. So you've always got to sell the category first and make sure the person is really into events before you go and sell your own event. So events, I believe, fantastic business development opportunities. But I think the mistake I make is when I see proposals people write, the only thing they ask for is money. When an organization can give you so much more than just cash. So let's just kind of explore some of those things. Now, these are going to vary depending on what types of organizations you're from. It might vary if you're a charity. It might vary if you're a festival. It might vary if you're in a sporting organization or association. But goods and services in kind. Now, the trick here, and I'm talking about contra deals, I'm talking about technology, I'm talking about lawyers, I'm talking about offices, I'm talking about coffee, I'm talking about printing, flights, accommodation, cars, all that kind of stuff. The key here is to go back to your finance manager and get a complete list of all the line items, because there's often something in there which you're paying money for, which might be the opportunity to turn into a contra opportunity. And often people haven't actually examined all their expenditure. There's always an opportunity, whether it's a full contra or even a part contra opportunity. Find the list of where you're spending money right now. But it's also about dollar generation, and this is the classic for some of the charities in the room, in terms of organizations raising funds through their staff participating in the big charity fundraising deal, or doing a cause-related marketing campaign on the side of the particular event that they're sponsoring. But it's also about awareness and understanding. When I was at the CommBank, I always used to think that one of the greatest things that we could give to an organization wasn't necessarily money, although that was a kind of important thing. It was the fact that the marketing machine of the largest company in Australia at the time could get behind your particular event. Imagine we gave you no money, but we went out and told you about how we were backing your particular sport, backing your business event, backing your particular festival or charity or whatever it was. That has not only just enormous media value, it actually has endorsement at the same time. So a specific example would be, about 20 years ago, we set up the netball sponsorship, which then went to ANZ and now Suncorp. At the time, they wanted to launch this new national league, and we gave them a lot of money to do that. But actually, the real value was us going out in our brand advertising, telling people they were actually behind that, because that was the real kind of getting behind their campaign. So I often think, if someone gave you no money, what else could they do for you? And awareness and understanding, I think, is vital. It amplifies your marketing spend of what you're already doing. But of course, companies have audiences, they have supporters, and they have donors. And I'm thinking here, when I've done a lot of work with Fairfax, and they've got people like Citigroup are heavily involved, and Citigroup can provide access then to audiences that may want to come to their events down at Hyde Park in terms of kind of the food events and that kind of stuff. So companies have huge audiences, supporters, and for the charities in the room, also obviously access to donors as well at the same time, and access to people that you may want. And also to volunteers. You may need volunteers for your event, and sometimes, particularly, if it's a kind of a fun run or fashion week. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people would like to be involved with that. Volunteers which otherwise you'd have to pay for, but everyone feels good about it. The staff feel good about it, the organisation feels good about it, and the organiser of the event has saved money at the same time by getting people involved who could also then share their experience. Table sales is an interesting one. Here's a trick on table sales. What I often see is that people will say, yeah, we sold one table to that organisation. If you have a corporate partner on board, and I'll give you an example of, use the CommBank as an example. You shouldn't go, hey, great news, we've got the CommBank to sell a table. What you should do is go to the CommBank and say, great, you sold a table. Now, if you really want to help us, this would be great if you could go to your ad agency, PR agency, digital agency, all the people who want to do business with you, and ask them to take a table. Because guess what? Let's just think about the psychology of it here. If you're the ad agency of the CommBank, and the CommBank say, look, we're really behind this particular event. We've taken a table. We'd love you to take a table to bring your clients. Are they going to say no? I don't think so, because they want that account. So don't just think we've gone to a corporate and they bought one table. Use that one table as a gatekeeper into all the people that want to do business with that particular organisation. It's also about credibility. One of the first questions that I'd ask you if you came in to pitch a proposal for me, I'd say, who else have you got on board? This is the kind of model in the retail, that David Jones and Meyer work on, or Westfield work on. They get David Jones and Meyer in first, everyone else piles in. So the question I'd say is, who else have you got on board as partners? Now, if you turn around and say, great news, we've got Qantas, we've got Macquarie Bank, now immediately something's happened. My risk is reduced because they've made the decision to go ahead, and also I might want to be in the same room as those people, and I might want to be associated with those people. If you turn around to me and say, great news, we've got some partners on board, there's dodgy second-hand shop down the road, dodgy second-hand car dealer down the road, I might think, actually, I don't want to be associated with those brands. That's not the kind of event that I want to be associated with. So there's credibility. Sponsors give credibility to the particular event in itself, but they also give expertise. Let me give you a real-life example. One of my favorite clients to work with over the years is the Leukemia Foundation. They have two huge fundraising events. One's World's Greatest Shade. You've probably heard of that. The other one's called Light the Night. Light the Night takes place at Bondi Beach. It takes place in St Kilda Foreshore, all around Australia. Big outdoor fundraising event. And there's a company called Kojo who provide a contra deal to put basically signs up, not signs, electronic signage where real-time social media messages can go up, giving the real impression that it is a national event, because you might be in St Kilda Beach and there's a message comes up on Twitter from someone in Subiaco or wherever it is at the same time in WA. So obviously the Leukemia Foundation can't do that, but Kojo can provide that. It's like the lady from IMG said, you're buying in expertise. That's one of, I think, the important things. But it's also about brand positioning. The analogy I always use with clients, there's 40 car companies in Australia. Which car are you? Where do you see your event? Are you the BMW or the Lexus? Are you the Mazda 3, which I drive? Or are you the kind of Trabant, Lada, or East German model that kind of went out a few years ago? It's thinking through, how do you want to be seen? Where does your event fit in a brand positioning point of view? Who are the other brands that you want associated with it? Do you want that mining company who's currently in a controversial situation? Do you want a bank, given what's going on at the moment? It's those kind of questions that you go through. I think the important message here is, before you put your proposal together and you get to the page at the end, which just asks for money, think through what else that person in front of you could do for you. Because I'll tell you one truth. If someone's only giving you money, they can turn it off like that. If they've just gone and told all their shareholders, staff, and customers how proud they are to be a partner with you, very difficult to go back the next year and say, now we're out of that partnership and all that help we were giving to that charity, that event, it stopped. Then you're going to get the negative backlash, a bit like when Holly showed that taxis, which I thought was a great case study of you're going to get negative on social media. And so when I was at the CommBank as a sponsorship manager there, you'd always think about long-term relationships. You'd never think about doing something and then thinking we're going to pull out a year later. That would be terrible. That would be a really terrible message. So think about all the things that you could do. Think about events, sell events, the whole, sense of what events can do for people when you're talking to them, and also make sure that you're extracting the most out of that with the person in front of you. So, with that in mind, let's move on to that was just kind of intro, to move on to the first key section. And when I'm working with organizations, I need a methodology, I need a framework, and this is the framework. There is no mystery why anyone who's approaching sponsors and partners is effective or not effective. There's no mystery at all. It's in what they do. It's either in their process, it's in their strategy, or in their competencies. Let me just talk you through this in a top-line way to draw out what I'm talking about. So in order to be effective at anything, there is a sequence of activity. This is the model, I believe, that effective partnership sponsorship seekers have. The start of the model is understanding the market. This is that companies have objectives. Companies want to engage audiences, drive awareness of their brand, tell brand stories, brand messages. They want to engage staff. They want to retain customers, attract new customers. They want to drive sales, et cetera, et cetera. They have objectives. So the key is saying, knowing that companies have objectives, what is your proposition? Your proposition is two things. What are the outcomes that you can achieve for those companies? And what are the properties that you have to take to market? So by properties, I'm talking about, IMG, they might have a football property, they might have a fashion property, and within that fashion property, they might have different sub-properties within Fashion Week. So there's all the different things that someone can attach to. What are all the properties that you have to take to market to sell? What is your proposition? Once you determine that, then you can ask yourself the question, which of the companies out there should we be talking to, because they would be attracted to that proposition because they have those needs, those challenges, or they'd be interested in that particular property for a particular reason. Then you have to put a BD plan in place to find and refine that list, only approaching people when you have a valid reason to approach them. Never approach anyone, you shouldn't approach anyone unless you have a clear reason of why you're approaching them. And then you've got to approach them or attract them to you. And then once you've done that, you're into classic business development. You're meeting them, you're building rapport, you're uncovering needs, exploring solutions, and then, and only then, are you putting a proposal to them. And then what you've got to do is close them and get into a huge area of service and retention, and throughout that whole process, review your performance in terms of checking in what's working, what's not working, et cetera, et cetera. Now, the important point, it's a process. The reason people fail is either they miss out one stage of the process or they're not effective in one stage. The classic one being is they go straight to proposal without having uncovered needs. The classic one is they haven't actually had enough meetings or they're not meeting the right people. The explanation of why you're not successful is always in that process. And I want you to think about when you go back to your office tomorrow or tonight or whatever it is, think about as an individual, as a team, as an organization, what is our process? Where are the barriers in our process? I'm working with someone this week, won't mention who it is, but they've been stuck at proposition stage for quite a few years. And until we actually uncover what it is you're taking to the market and what your properties are, the rest of it's just is irrelevant. So you've got to think, where am I in the process? Now, process is one thing. The second thing is competency. Competency, for anyone from a training background, skills, knowledge, and attitudes. To be effective in this game, there are certain skills you need, individually, collectively, and within your team. I'll just highlight a couple of them. Questioning and active listening skill. When I do workshops, this is a key focus of every day. It's the number one skill for all effective business developers, to uncover needs, uncover satisfaction. But there's also a couple in there that are interesting. Writing skills and presentation skills. You can write a great proposal, but can you bring it to life? When you're sat there in a cafe or in a boardroom, can you really stand there and make it persuasive? Two people can present the same proposal, but get a completely different outcome based on their ability to present. So you've got to think about what are the key skills that you need and where are you in your team. If you've got people who don't have questioning skills and can't present, you ain't going to go very far in this whole game. Likewise, knowledge. There are certain things that you have to know to be effective. So if you're approaching me for a partnership, going back to my Combank days, one of the things I'll be doing is be asking you questions about your organization. And what you want is people that have a clear understanding of who they are, where they've been, what the vision is for the future. They know about their, the event that they're actually selling, their audiences, their brand, all that kind of stuff. If you start to sound hesitant or don't know the own information about your own organization, you just give me a reason for saying, move on, I'll go and see the next person. Because you're in a highly competitive market and there's literally thousands of people trying to engage the corporates. What's also interesting there is features and benefits. People often talk about benefits, they're actually talking about features, and I'll show you the difference in a minute. The key reason why people are unsuccessful. So I guess what I'm saying is lots of things to know. Now let me get on to the next one, which is attitudes. There's 100 words I could write here, but I've highlighted one. And that word is urgency. What I've done when I review all the people I work with and I think, what is it about the people who are successful and who are not. One of the key attributes is that people who are successful get on and do things. They're urgent. They're not going, yeah, but we're waiting for 100% of the information before talking to someone. You don't need 100% of the information to start a conversation. Just get on with it. And the people who are highly effective at business development have a sense of urgency. The people who don't, who are not, give you excuses. The important thing about this is when I go to an organization, some people have the skills, they have the knowledge, but temporarily their attitude has dipped, their mojo's gone for whatever reason. So there's no point giving questioning skills or presentation skills to someone who has those skills. You might need to give them a bit of a pep talk. You might need to go back to the why. You're sat here working with people who are homeless. Let's remind yourselves every day you come here to do that. You're not bitching with the marketing department, bitching with the project team. That's not why you're here. You're here to help the homeless people. Let's remind yourselves, get their motivation back. Other people, highly motivated, don't have the skills, don't have the knowledge. So you have to give them the knowledge or the skills. So I'm asking you and suggesting to you, when you walk away from here, you've got to think in terms of selling your events. Where are we, and I say we because you might be in a team, in terms of our skills? Do we have some skills missing that are stopping us being successful? Do we have some knowledge gaps? Do we need to kind of temporarily fire ourselves up and reacquaint ourselves with why we're working on Fashion Week? Because we love fashion. Why did I join this arts organization? Because I love the arts. Why did I join this charity? To help people. It's re-engaging with the why, which Holly was talking about this morning. So process is important. Competencies are important. But so is strategy. What interests me when I go into organizations, I say, can you show me your written strategy? And a lot of organizations don't have one. The problem is, if your strategy is in your head and you leave, where do you go from there? So I always think that if you're presenting to the board or your management team your strategy, these are the headings you need to cover off. I think you should always start with the benefits of having corporate partners. Why are we even bothered doing this? The list I went through earlier. It's going through, this is what we have to offer. This is the outcomes we achieve. These are the properties we're going to take to market. We believe this is who these properties would appeal to. This is our plan for finding these prospects. This is our plan for engaging. Are we going to phone, write? What are we going to do? What's the plan? And who's going to do it? And also, most importantly, what's your retention and servicing strategy? Also, within that, what are your targets for 1 to 3 years? I think it's important in the game you're in to recognize it's a long-term game. We just did an analysis recently with one of my clients, and we found that on average it took 6 months to get a partner. 20 new partners came in. On average, it was 6 months. So it might be that all the activity you're doing now is actually to get a partner on board for next year's event. The important point is if you have a 3-year plan and you can show your board that the activity we're doing now and the support we need on this plan is helping to build over time, if we can retain and grow the existing ones and bring new ones in each year in 3 years' time, this is where the revenue is going to be. And by the way, in year 2, we're going to need another resource, and you need to agree that now, otherwise this isn't going to work. The other trick of doing a 3-year plan, it buys you time. Okay? It's not we're going to deliver this in 12 months. This is the 3-year plan. And also, what's the cost and resources required, which is what I just mentioned. Being clear to people that if we're actually going to service and retain these people effectively, we might need another resource, etc. The point is, if you stand up in front of a board and management team and address these points, I'm pretty sure at the end of that presentation, they won't have that many questions because you've prejudged all the questions they're likely to ask. What's really annoying for boards, and I've seen facilitate a lot of board strategy sessions, is the partnership people just haven't thought through all these questions, and the board person sitting there going, I just don't understand where are we on this? I just don't understand where we are. So help them to understand, and people will give you support if they see that you know what you're doing, if you're worth giving support. The important point here is there is no mystery why people are successful at getting sponsors and partners. It's either because their process isn't effective, it's either because they don't have the competencies, or it might be that they haven't got an effective strategy in place. So what I want you to do when you walk away from here with your event is to think through, where are we? Gather your team around and ask yourselves these questions. Where are we on this? What is stopping us? Have we got the strategy right? Do we feel that we have the competencies? Do you feel that you're something you need to be better skilled at? And what about our process? Unless you unlock the barriers within those areas, you'll never progress. And that's the thing that always interests me, because every organization is different. So, let me move forward to talking about value. What I observe within all those kind of 3 areas is verbally and visually, people who are approaching sponsors and partners are not demonstrating value, and often the sponsors are not deriving the value. And that is down to you to help them to see the value and also to help them get the value. So let me explain what I mean by that. The key to value is helping someone to achieve an objective. Most partnerships fail because there was a lack of clarity or a mutual understanding of what the objectives were in the first place. And I'm talking absolute clarity. When I'm talking about driving sales, I'm talking about driving sales of what product over what time frame. When I'm talking about community engagement, that woolly term, I'm talking about which community and what does engagement look like. Absolute clarity, mutual understanding of objectives. So this is the model I use, and I use this with every organization I go into, which are 8 classic objectives of why a company would undertake a partnership. I mentioned them earlier, but it's to engage audiences, it's about to drive awareness, it's to convey certain brand messages or brand stories, engaging employees, relationships existing and new, differentiating yourself from the competition, driving sales, or it could be something of a personal interest of why someone gets involved with a particular opportunity. So in order to derive value, create value, you have to help someone achieve an objective. So you've got to know what the objectives are in the first place, and then you've got to meet those objectives, and that's where a lot of things go wrong. So knowing what an objective is, this is not a proposition. Oh, sorry, let me go back. A proposition, as you will see in a lot of proposals, people will say, these are the benefits. They're not benefits, they're features. Naming rights, a hospitality table, an advert in a program, a logo on a banner. I'll see a lot of proposals with a list. That's what it has. It's a list of features which people usually say, gold sponsor, long list with a price at the bottom. I'll come on to the gold sponsors in a moment. But that's not a proposition. How do we create a proposition? Well, I'll show you. It's a pretty simple process that's used in every other industry in the whole world, but for some reason except in sponsorship. I've never worked this out. But basically, if someone had naming rights, the question is, what does naming rights do for someone? Well, it could do one of 3 things. Naming rights could help you to drive awareness of your brand in a market or audience, like Mercedes Fashion Week. It could help you to drive an association with a cause or an event that demonstrates your values. Or it could drive a leadership position for you in an industry sector or market and differentiate you from your competitors. The important point is different companies have a different appetite for each of those benefits. So, for example, when I was at the Combank or KPMG, people would come in with proposals saying, this can help drive awareness of your brand. Not a problem. All of our audience, Combank's awareness levels, it's like 99%. KPMG amongst their audience is like 99%. It's not a problem. Awareness is not a problem. It is a problem for a challenger brand. So you've got to ask yourself, naming rights for a challenger brand, now they're getting excited because you can help them to drive awareness of their brand, if that is how you're positioning it to them. So you've got to think, who are the challenger brands who will get real value out of this? However, who wants to drive an association with a cause, theme, or event that demonstrates the values? Mercedes, classic example. Mercedes wants to be seen as the fashionable car brand. That's what that's doing. That's positioning. The third one, differentiation. If you're going to a highly competitive market like the 4 banks, don't say to them, this will drive awareness of your brand. But if you go to them and say, we have a conference which is about women in finance, by you backing this particular conference, you'll be seen to be on side a conference that's relevant to 52% of the population. So and you will be an exclusive banking partner to this, so you will have the opportunity to communicate that message about how this sector is important to you. So the important point is don't just go, this comes with naming rights. You've got to say, this comes with naming rights, which means to you, the person in front of me who has these needs, this is what it'll do for you. Suddenly you've gone from a feature to benefit and actually something that's relevant. You've got to explain everything you have, which is a great opportunity. What will that do for someone? Now you start to start creating value. Likewise, another kind of classic benefit or actual feature that you'll see in proposals is around hospitality. Now, whatever that hospitality is, what could someone do with a table at Fashion Week, a table at a conference, a table at a gala ball? What could they do with that? Well, they could use that table to build relationships with prospects and enhance relationships with clients. They could use it to reward staff, or they could use exactly the same table to run a product promotion of interest and value to customers to drive sales. The question again is, which companies have an appetite for those benefits? That will appeal to different people. So, for example, building relationships with prospects and clients, you're straight into my KPMG days there. But if you're going to go to an association, well, they don't even have clients, they have members. Who's into staff? No point going to someone whose staff are in a call center overseas. Which companies are looking to really engage their staff and have staff in the area where your event is taking place? And which type of organizations run product promotions of interest and value? I mean, this is kind of more kind of retail type things or fast-moving consumer goods. So it's saying, look, this comes with a hospitality opportunity. This is what it'll do for you. So suddenly you've gone from just saying naming rights, hospitality, into having a much more of a conversation around two features into benefits that are relevant to the person in front of you. And it starts helping you to think about who you should approach because who has those particular needs. So we need to avoid the list and describe the opportunity and the outcome. And the way we present every outcome in a proposal or opportunity document is using this kind of basic formula. And basically the page looks like this. We put the outcome on top. We can help showcase your brand in its desired brand context, and then we put the specific features that will drive that outcome below. So this is an example from, I've changed it, but it's one of my arts clients who had a wine sponsor. I've put some generic photos in just to show you, just to kind of take out who the actual sponsor was. But basically the format is outcome at the top. We've agreed that that's what you're trying to achieve. These are the different ways that we can help you to achieve that particular outcome. Here's some imagery that gives you a sense of what it may look like and what it might talk about. Now, just one thing on imagery. In the events business, I mean, it lends itself to imagery. Sometimes when I look at proposals from event companies for events, I think, where's the pictures? Help people to see what you're actually selling. Don't try and describe it. Just show them a picture. You know, picture is 1,000 words. And also, if you're saying someone you can help them to drive sales, you know, you've said that driving sales is important for you. Here are 4 ways that we can help you to drive sales. Let's talk about what we can do with each of these and what's your thoughts. The key is don't run through the whole of the proposal and then say, what are your thoughts? Missed opportunity, because you're asking them to think about everything you've just said. The key is to sell as you go. You have to check in on every page and check that that was their need. This is your solution. What are your thoughts? And if they have any concerns at that particular point, then you can confirm them, and then you move on. Then you know at the end that you've actually answered all their questions as you've gone along. And you know you're what we call moving along the commitment highway. You're building commitment as you go. You know you're getting closer, rather than doing your whole pitch, your song and dance, and going, what do you think? You know, and then you're asking them to think about everything you've just said over the last kind of 30 minutes. So presenting the information in a way that's visually digestible for an event, I mean, there's really no excuse because you should have lots of photographs and always have a photographer handy at your events as you have here. But what effective business developers do, and I just kind of alluded to it here, is what they do is they explore solutions to the prospect's needs with the prospect. So let me explain what I mean by that. Let's imagine that you've gone along and you've identified a company and you think your event would be great for them because your event is a kind of community event, and you've read somewhere that that company is very much into community engagement as a kind of key strategy. You go along, you have a meeting with them, and you feel at that point, at the start of the meeting, that community engagement could be of interest. They confirm that it is. Do you run away then and write a proposal addressing community engagement? Or do you say, look, let me just ask you a few questions. You mentioned community engagement quite a lot as a key strategy. Can I ask you, when you talk about community, who is this community? Say nothing, let them speak. The word community is one of those generic words, but what is it? Who is the community? And if they were engaged, what would it look like? In 12 months' time, if you were to tell me that community engagement had been achieved, what would have happened? What would be seeing, hearing? What would have been happening then that's not happening now? Once I know exactly what community engagement means for you, then I can explore in the moment a solution. And the way you do that, the trick is to say, okay, you've just talked about community engagement being a very deep engagement with this group of people. It's going to change their behavior. What we've done for another organization who had a similar challenge was this. What are your thoughts? If we did that for you, how would that be? And what you're doing is basically what it's like a traffic light. You're exploring a solution, putting a solution out, and getting them to react to it. And the reaction is going to be one of 3 things. That sounds great. That's exactly what I had in mind. So if you put that in the proposal, would that be good? Absolutely. The next answer might be, sounds okay, but can you tell us some more information? Absolutely. The third answer might be, no way, we're not doing that. We tried it before. Not the answer you want, but a useful answer because it allows you then in the moment to talk through what didn't work and how you could maybe do something differently. So it's about exploring solutions. Then when you go and write your proposal isn't, oh my God, I hope they like the proposal. You know they like the proposal because they've helped shape the proposal with you. Poor business developers send solutions, proposals without uncovering needs. Good business developers uncover needs and write a proposal. Really good ones take time to explore solutions in front of that person to shape the proposal, which is then more of a confirmation of what you're going to do together to move things forward. And you have a much greater chance then of getting the person to say yes. So exploring solutions is absolutely vital. But let's imagine then that you've explored solutions. Here's a lovely little process chart that I use with my clients to really help nail your proposition in your proposal. What we do is we ask them to put down in the left-hand column the objectives of the partner, and then we go through row by row, and I've just put one example in here, to go through this model. Objectives, feature, benefit, evidence. So in this case, you might say, well, they told us that they need to enhance relationships with their key clients and prospects. So what we can do for them is we can provide them an exclusive event for 100 of their top clients and prospects with drinks and canapes and a tailored talk from the keynote speaker. The benefit to them is that they have the opportunity to build relationships in an exclusive environment, differentiating themselves from the competitors at the event, and enhancing their position as industry leaders. How could we communicate that? We can show images of the last year's event, a testimonial, which is always powerful, of a company who did a similar thing to build relationships, and talk about the amount of business they got flowing out of that particular event. So it's just a nice process tool we use internally. You don't show this to your partner. This is just something you do in your team to check that you've nailed the objectives, you're clear on the features and what it means for them, and how that you can bring that to life. It's a lovely process tool, and often when we do this, it really helps people to see the gaps in their argument when they're forming their proposals. So now, let me move on to one of my favorite talking points of the day. And I should be careful here because I did check the prospectus for the program here, and I did see gold, silver, and bronze sponsors. This is so last century. And I'll tell you why. Let's imagine that you've just signed someone up for a conference as a bronze partner. What happens next? They walk back to their office, they gather all the troops around, gather, come in, we've got some great news. We've just signed up as a bronze sponsor of the conference. What's going through the staff's mind at this particular time? Probably, Jesus, is business so bad we couldn't be silver or gold? And what's the story? What is the story? What are you expecting your staff to do at this point? Quick, get onto social media and tell everyone we are the bronze sponsor. There's no story. Simply changing the word changes the whole value. Innovation partner, community partner, engagement partner, creative partner, experience partner, destination partner, sustainability partner. Now let's replay the story. You just signed up. You're not the bronze partner. You're the innovation partner. You go back to your office. You gather all the troops. Gather around, everyone. I've got some great news. We've just signed up as the innovation partner at this conference. And the reason we've done that, the why, as Holly talked about, is because from the day you joined this company, we told you about how innovation is a key building block of this organization. Now what I want you to do, I want you to go and tell all our clients and all our prospects that we are the innovation partner at this particular conference. Tell them what stand we're on, and tell them if when they come to that stand, we've got a specific white paper on innovation and innovation thinking. Now you've got something. Simply changing the word, you go from nothing to something. No company wakes up in the morning and go, I need to be a bronze sponsor. A key message is to be a bronze sponsor. A key message is we want to be seen as community focused. We want to be seen as the destination partner. We want to be seen as the indigenous partner. We want to be seen as the regional partner. The messages, the brand messages that companies have, the problems they have, the stories they're trying to tell. Simply changing a word unlocks the opportunity from, not very exciting to something that you can actually sell. And you can actually I did this on Tuesday. We're going through the propositions, and I was just saying, my experience in corporates, companies love education programs. Let's make sure, let's really amplify the education program that we're talking about, because I know companies will go on to that. They're not a bronze partner with a little bit of education. You are the education partner. Then they can start talking about why education is important to them. Give them a story they can use. Bronze, silver, gold, it's irrelevant. It's not the Olympic Games. Come on. Now, at this point at a conference, someone goes, Richard, no, we've got a problem here. We've got a problem because my partners, they like to be in categories. Yeah, let's do a little bit of thinking here. As principal sustainability partner, you will be leading the conversation developing a sustainable future for the city of Bendigo or Parramatta. As sustainability partner, you'll be promoting the discussion of creating a sustainable future for the city of Parramatta or Bendigo or whatever. So you can still have the tiering. You're inviting one person to be the leader of that particular story, and then you have other people who fit under the category itself. So you can still do that. It just requires a little bit of thinking. You have a principal sustainability partner, and then the rest of them are sustainability partners. You still have that tiering that you're looking for and want, because you've got different stories there and recognition of different kind of revenue levels that might be coming into your organization. Now, one of the big things on the process is when you're engaging people, one of the things people, I have to say, I'll be frank with you, in terms of all the different organizations I work with, whether it's arts, sports, charities, events, associations, the event category, I think, is often guilty of the churn and burn mentality. I've seen it in event companies where it's kind of, here's your list, ring them all before lunch, you know? And then, you know, you phoned a big company, then in 30 seconds it's gone, you know? There's much more productive ways of engaging people, and it's what we call attraction activities. So let me share with you two classic attraction activities. So one which is interesting, which when I was working with Diversified a few years ago, they did this on one of the shows, it worked really well. It's the concept of a kind of pre-event launch. And I don't mean the launch necessarily of your event, but what it might be, I'll just give you an example. Let's say you have an event taking place in November. And I'm not talking about the official launch of the event necessarily, but what you do, you just put on an event back in February or March, which gives people maybe a taste of what might be happening. So you might get one speaker or a panel in the particular city that your event's taking place. And what you're doing is you're just talking about a topic that's relevant to the people you want as your exhibitors and as your sponsors. And what you're using it as is you never want to be selling to people. When you pick up the phone, you never want to be selling. You want to be providing information and adding value. So one of the things that you could do as part of your suite of activity when you're engaging people is to invite your prospects, particularly the prospects who are kind of on the you know, maybe close, or even the ones who you can't even get through on the phone. I mean, any prospect really, and people you want to renew. Get them along, you know, kind of 6 months out, really early in the year, just to an event which addresses issues that are relevant to them, just to meet them face to face. Someone comes to the event who've been trying to get through to on the phone for ages because they don't want to answer your call or they're busy, or you know. But they are interested in coming to this event to hearing this particular speaker talk about a topic, meet a few other people, and that gives you the chance face-to-face to meet them. So then it gives you permission to then, having met them, to call them the following week. In fact, at the event, you'll say, look, I'd love to call you next week and have a chat or come and have a meeting. I mean, it's just a great way of, you know, it takes a little bit of activity, but I find in business development, if you can hook conversations around an event, it's a really worthwhile thing to have, rather than just kind of, here's a list, we're going to call everyone a list by lunchtime, and by lunchtime you've blown all your hot leads. You know, it's about lifetime value, long-term relationships. Something just, you can invite someone to get to know them, something of interest, works really well. Linked to that, and might not be too dissimilar, is what I call a thought leadership activity. So, a thought leadership activity, and I'm actually going to get you to do a little exercise in a moment, just a brief exercise, but I'll give you the example. So one of my favorite clients is an organization called Landcare. Landcare have tremendous growth in their partnerships over the last 3 years. It was kind of going nowhere, kind of work with them to really get their proposition and get out in the marketplace. And now they're very much, you know, making sure they can retain those partners as well as attract new ones. In fact, if you go into Woolworths at the moment, new $1 million partnership, those green bags, the Landcare logo, new $1 million deal, $1,000 grants, 1,000 of those grants. So it's one of their new partnerships, for example. But here's a great strategy. So here I am facilitating a lunch. On the left is my client, James from Landcare, as the partnership manager. On the right is all the leading corporate social responsibility managers in Australia. We've got Coca-Cola, Rio Tinto, et cetera, who are the partners of Landcare. And in that picture, we have one prospect, which is a technique in itself. If you want to sell yourself, don't say anything. Just get your best clients to sit next to your prospect. Whatever they say will be more beneficial than what you say. Okay? So what we did, we put together a lunch, invited key people to a lunch to talk about a topic which is relevant to them. And what was relevant to them was talking about their views on corporate social responsibility. What does it mean? What's the future of corporate social responsibility? At the end of the lunch, they published, not immediately at the end of the lunch, but a few months after, a white paper, which is available, If you email me, I can send it to you. It's a great document as an example of utilizing the generation of content. You should always be multi-purposing content. So it's not just having a lunch. It's then doing a paper which you can then send out to the industry from the findings from the lunch. It takes a bit of work, but a great tool, because then you can use that to engage prospects. Sorry to make the lunch, but we went, you're interested in corporate social responsibility. This is a lunch we have. We thought you might be interested in this particular period of topic. So this concept of you positioning yourself through your events as a thought leader on a particular topic and inviting your prospects to a lunch to engage in that topic is a really powerful tool, not just for retention and servicing, but if you mix your key prospects with your best clients. It works a treat. Nothing you will say will sell you as much as you sitting your best client next to your best prospect. In fact, I've got a job coming up in a couple of weeks. It's Guide Dogs Australia, with all their corporate partnership members. That came because James was on a panel like this, and he mentioned that he had been working with me, and the Guide Dogs person said, I better work with Richard. So I could have phoned them up and said, hey, my name's Richard, I can really help you. Who the hell are you, kind of thing. But whatever James would say about me would be much more powerful than me saying it myself. So get your prospects and clients in the same room, and over an event that is of interest to them. So what I thought I'd do, just as a little bit of an activity, just to break things up, and I have a glass of water, is what I'd like you to do just for 1 minute on your own, and then for the second minute with the person next to you, so the two of you there, I'd just like you to write down, because they have provided a piece of paper, if you were to put a thought leadership lunch on to engage your prospects and it might be exhibitors, sponsors, partners, whatever, around a topic of interest to them that they might come to a lunch to discuss and hear about, what might be that topic? I just want you to write down, it might be more than one topic, but just what might be the topic that you would invite people to talk about, because they'd come to that because it's of interest to that audience. I'd like you just to write that down and then just share it with the person next to you and just swap your ideas. It's just an exercise for a couple of minutes. Just write your own down and just share it with the person next to you. And we'll just a little exercise for a couple of minutes, okay? Just away you go. Okay, let's just hear from a couple of examples. I think you've got a microphone at the back. Who'd like to just share what their topic might be? Anyone like to put your hand up? Anyone? Oh, were you going to put your hand up? No. Who'd like to put their hand up? Yes, lady there. So just talk us through, maybe just say which organisation you're from and what your idea might be.
Hello, my name's Trish and this is my colleague Megan. We're from Livingston Shire Council, which is a tiny council on the Capricorn Coast in Queensland. We are suffering a name crisis at the moment because the word Livingston doesn't really mean anything to anyone. So we're out at the moment doing community consultation regarding becoming known as the Capricorn Coast Regional Council.
Nice, yeah.
So we would align ourselves with the business. We have like a local business alliance group. We have an RTO, Chamber of Commerce type things like that. Then we would try to recruit some local people, old local families, that actually hopefully would be on board with the whole, marketing around the word coast means a lot more. I mean, we say hello to people here and no one knows what Livingston means. It doesn't mean anything even to people that live and work there. But then we have another 70% of our community that just don't want to do it because of the costs to a local government to change a name.
Okay. And so what do you think, if you're inviting your prospects, what might be the topic of the lunch?
Maybe obviously the benefits. Is that what you mean? Yeah, the benefits of it, or maybe the disadvantage of doing it. We're a recently de-amalgamated council from an amalgamated council. Yep. So, yeah, we have a lot of issues.
Okay. Change the name. That's my tip for the day. The coast one sounds a lot more interesting. One more. Let's hear one more. Yes, lady at the back.
I'm actually not a part of any organisation. I'm a student at UTS, but I recently was appointed city manager of an organisation called the Asian Creative Network. They're 2 months old, and they're trying to become a legitimate organisation. And recently we have done an event called the Human Library at the Live and Art Gallery. And if I were to host a lunch, I'd really want to discuss Asian representation in creative industries. It's very uncommon within, I guess, Western society. And yeah, I just want to kind of...
Love it, love it. You've come up with the title, haven't you? And that would be of interest to people who that topic is of interest. Yeah? It's brilliant. Okay. Now, business developers are people who are kind of keen. So for you doing that, here's a copy of my book, Business Development That Works. And here's a copy of my book, How to Attract and Retain Sponsors and Partners. Okay? Business developers are people who kind of, you put your hand up. Good on you. So the point is, think about the key thing here, activity. What I want you to do is when you go back to your organizations next week, ask yourself, could we, in the cycle of activity where our event is, whenever your event is in the calendar, would it be appropriate to put on a little kind of activity to invite people to talk about a topic? I mean, the fashion one was a good example. Mercedes Fashion Week, 6 months out, and they probably do this anyway, could have a little satellite activity talking about the event that's coming up in 6 months' time, but just talking about what the trends in the fashion business or trends in the business of fashion. It's a topic that is of relevance to interest to bring people together. We're in the events business. Why wouldn't you have an event like this? It is exactly what you do. So I think these kind of things absolutely work a treat. So, value. So here we go back to the exhibition table and, the hospitality table and exhibition stand. This is how you create value. So let's imagine that you have a table to sell at an event. How do you sell that table to someone? How do you show the value? Here's the table, looks very nice. You could say that here's a table as part of your benefits package. Enjoy the event. Hope the Chardonnay is chilled and the food's great and have a great time. Or you could say to them, what's really important to us as an organization is that you get the most out of all the particular benefits that we have and that you've bought. I want to ensure that you get the best out of this hospitality table. So let's just kind of talk about what potentially you could do. When I've had these conversations with other partners, it's really helped them to think through about getting the best use out of it. So for example, if the table had 12 tickets, what could you do with that 12 tickets? Who are your 2 best clients that you want to say thank you so much for doing business with us? Who are they? Let them hear, invite them. Who are your 2 best prospects that if they sat next to your 2 best clients, they could sell you better than anyone else? Who would they be? Let's invite them. Why don't we, sales is important, you've got a sales team. Why don't we reward your 2 best sales people through a sales incentive program? Salesperson of the month gets to come to this particular event. Why don't we reward people for demonstrating the cultural values and brand values, which Holly was talking about earlier? We can video you at the dinner talking about why these 2 people won and that can go out through your intranet and internal social media. We can do that with the salespeople to go back to the sales team and motivate the sales team. We can give 2 tickets to a charity partner so they could mention at another charity event that these 2 tickets are donated by you. And of course, you do need 2 tickets for yourself. The point is you can do a little with a table of tickets, or you can do a hell of a lot if only you use your brain and start thinking about it. What happens, and I've seen this so often, is in organizations, people leave everything to the last minute and in a company, and they go, oh, Jesus, we've got a box at the football on the weekend. Oh, who should we invite? Oh, get Frank along. He loves it. And all they're doing is just talking to the same people, rather than strategically thinking through, we've got 12 spots in that box. How can we absolutely utilize that box to achieve a whole range of different business outcomes around retention, new business, sales, culture, brand, and have a good time yourself with your partner? It's just thinking through and planning to get the most out of it and helping people to see, actually, thank you so much for that conversation. Thank you for helping us think through, because now we're really getting a lot out of the boxes, And I see value in our box, and I see value in our partnership because we're getting the value. Thank you for helping us get the value. Linked to that, one of my favorite ones is exhibition space. Is there anyone in this room sell exhibition space, or anyone from exhibition companies? Okay, this is my favorite one. I spend a lot of time at conferences speaking. One of the things I do, and I don't think there are any exhibition booths on this one, I don't think so anyway, but what I do, I also take a walk round, and it's just frightening. Someone's bought an exhibition booth, there they are sat with all their key prospects and targets walking around. At the end of the exhibition, they talk around and go, yeah, got nothing from it. Got nothing from it. That's surprising, because when I walked past your stand, you were sitting at the back of the stand on your computer going through your emails. And now you're wondering why you didn't get any business from it. So what I like to do is walk past all the exhibition stands and just see, does anyone actually engage you? No. They sat at the back, oh, this is a brilliant conference. I'm really getting through all my emails. Really productive conference. I cleared a backlog of hundreds of emails whilst their target audience is walking past them. It's pathetic. It's ridiculous. Complete waste of money. What you have to do is educate your exhibitors to get the most value. And that doesn't mean go to your website. We've got a brochure on how to exhibit. No one's going to go there. You've got to help them. And the process of helping them is good selling in itself. So what you want to do, I recommend, is say something like this. We want you to get the most value out of your exhibition space. What we found is when we've talked to other exhibitors who are getting a lot out of it, these are the things that they've thought about doing. And it's having a conversation about pre-event, at event, and after the event. So let's talk about what you can do pre-event to talk to your prospects about the fact that you're participating at the event. This goes back to, have you gone out in your social media to tell people you're the innovation partner, not the bronze partner, and that if they come to your particular stand, 192, you'll get a white paper around innovation? Have you told people before the event? Have you practiced what you're going to say to people when they come up to you on your stand, what your elevator pitch is? You've got 30 seconds to sell your organization. Have you practiced your questioning technique to engage them in a conversation? What are the conversation questions you're going to have? What do you want people to think, feel, and do when they get to the stand, which also goes back to design? Who's the best person to have on the stand? No, it's not the office junior. It is your best salesperson. You know, this is not a place to training exercise. Your prospects and walking past, you want to engage them with the right people because your competitors got their A-team working on their stand. So what are you going to do pre-event? And then what are you going to do at event? So for example, if you think about segmenting a conference into times of, pieces of time, people are going to come out at morning break, lunch break, and afternoon break. That's kind of peak time. Do you want to be stuck having one conversation with one person at that particular time? Or do you make sure that is the strategy to engage people in different conversations and then follow up afterwards? Otherwise, if you just have one conversation with one person, you just wasted the other leads that are walking past. It's just thinking through, what are you actually going to do at the event? Are you going to give something away? What's your strategy? What are you going to do? Who's going to be there? What are you going to say? All that kind of stuff. And let's get to the most important bit. How are you going to follow up with all those juicy leads that you've generated? I need to know right now. I do not want you telling me in 3 months' time you didn't get any business out of this because you didn't follow up on the leads. And how many times have I seen that? Too many. Complete waste of time and money when someone's generated leads and they haven't followed it. I want a date in the diary right now, and then you're going to come back to me and tell me how many people you phoned, how many meetings you had, and how much business you got, because that is your testimonials of the future. Often people have generated huge business from exhibiting, but unless there's a tracking, they kind of don't tell you, and they think that they haven't. So you've got to educate people to get the outcomes that you want. Some people, is it always right for them? Not always, but surely if you're standing in a room with your prospects walking past, that can only be a positive opportunity. The key word there being an opportunity. Are you going to seize that opportunity, or are you going to, miss that opportunity? And I see that so often. And I wish that we had some exhibitors here in the exhibition hall because we could all go for a walk and go, look at them, we're tapping away at the back. Oh, it's beautiful, great conference, cleared my 500 emails, just cleared. I feel really good now. What about new business? Oh, sorry, I forgot about that, So exhibition space. I guess my point I'm saying is something's come up on my screen now that says waiting for redirecting. Not sure what this is. Now it's working. Thank you very much. So I guess what I'm talking about, value, value, value. Let's move on to the third area I was going to talk about, effective servicing retention. We're going to do an activity now, and this activity will involve you utilizing the benefit of events, is where you meet other people. What I'm going to get you to do, in fact, can I get you all just to stand up? Everyone knows. This is going to be a 2-minute exercise, 2-minute exercise. What I'd like you to do, I'd like you to find someone, the first part of the exercise, I just want you to find someone that you've never met before. That's it, first part of the exercise, just find someone you've never met before. Right now, go on, find someone you've never met before. Okay, this is what, 3's good, 3's good, 3's fine, 3's fine, 3's fine. Okay, this is what you have to do. This is the scenario. Imagine that the two of you tonight go for a meal in a restaurant. You have the meal, you walk out of the restaurant, you turn to each other and you say, wow, the service in that restaurant was fantastic. what might have happened in that restaurant for you to form the conclusion that the service was fantastic? Give you a couple of minutes just to consider what might have happened in that restaurant for you to form the conclusion of what effective service is. Away you go, a couple of minutes. Okay, there's a gentleman with the microphone at the back. Who'd like to just a couple of people to share. You've walked into the restaurant, the two of you, you've walked out at the end of it and go, wow, the service in there was fantastic. What might have happened in that restaurant? Just anyone like to share their thoughts? Yes, lady there. Microphone's just coming, just there.
For us, we pretty much agreed it was all about timing. So not just because you can get seated really promptly, but then if everything else was slow or inattentive or just you had to keep chasing stuff, that's the worst part of it. So timing throughout the entire evening.
Timing, okay, lovely. Anyone else? Anyone else? Yes, gentleman and lady down here, just come down here. So timing and attentiveness, I think, yeah.
We established being present but not too present. So
yes.
that does relate to that point, but it's knowing when to check in but not being a pest.
Okay, like that. Knowing when to check in but not be a pest. So we've got attentive, timing, knowing when to check in. Gentleman there?
We agreed on the same
Yep.
as the other two groups, but also knowledge of the menu, like product knowledge.
Knowledge of the menu.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, lovely, great. Anything else? Just one more? Yes, at the back there, lady at the back. So we've got knowledge, timeliness, being present but not in your soup, so to speak.
We were just talking about getting the basics really right. So getting the food on time, getting the drinks on time, creating a positive ambience in the room. And also in Sydney, you often feel like you're being kicked out. And so whilst you've had a really nice meal, you're suddenly felt that you're not actually a priority anymore and that they just want the revenue.
So we're talking here about service, feeling like you're a priority, timeliness, being attentive, knowledgeable, all those kind of things. Can I just ask you a question? How many of those things are written on the menu against the price you're paying? None. Back to your seats. Let me explain to you what effective service actually is. Effective service is not delivering what is on the menu. Effective servicing in sponsorships and partnerships is not delivering just what is in the sponsorship agreement. That's just the bare minimum, absolute bare minimum. Here's the sponsorship model I use, servicing and retention model I use, which I'll usually take an afternoon to go through, but I'll just give you an overview and drill down on a couple of key things. It's about mindset, it's about tools, it's about techniques. So there's a whole mindset, first of all, about sell once, retain forever. If you've gone to the trouble of getting a partner on board, for God's sake, have it in your whole mentality that we're going to get these people coming back forever and ever. Like Telstra and the Australian Ballet for 30 years. Like Shell and Questacon for 30 years. I work with the Brisbane Children's Hospital. Woolworths have put $55 million into that hospital over many years. It's the lifetime value. So it's the whole idea of servicing to the lifetime value. Mercedes, she talked about, I think it was in the 90s, I think she said, came on board as a partner. Think through how much money Mercedes would have now put into that event over the years. And if they got it wrong in the first year, it had gone after the first years. The analogy here, using a coffee analogy, if you were running a cafe and someone came to you that you'd never, walking across the street towards your cafe, you'd never seen them before, how do you view them? Do you view them as someone who's going to spend $4 with you or $1,000? If you can get that person to come back and buy coffee from your cafe, one coffee a day, 5 days a week for a year, that's $1,000. You do that with 100 people, that's $100,000. Do you sell them one coffee and they don't like the experience and they then spend $996 with your competitor? That's the numbers. This is what happens in partnerships. People don't service them partly. They take them for granted. They think it's just about delivering what's in the contract. And then a year later they leave and they're in the cycle of business development over and over again. Sell once, retain forever should be the mindset. Sell to the lifetime value. What does that mean? It means servicing them as though they will be there in 30 years' time. So I'll give you an example. When I was at the Combank, we sponsored netball for 10 years. We put millions of dollars into that sport because they got it right. As I said, Australian Ballet, 30 years, huge amount of money. Shell, 30 years. Every year, huge amount of money, huge amount of money, huge amount of money. That's what you want. You've got to service them effectively. It's the lifetime value. And sometimes, and I had this conversation this week, someone was questioning the need to employ a servicing person to manage the account. Are you kidding? You've just signed up this first-year partnership and you're doing the things right now that are going to fail this partnership. because people are expecting this. They want to be serviced. So sell to the lifetime value. Deliver what you promised. So everything that's in the menu on the contract, you've got to deliver them. But it's also, as I said, servicing is more than implementation, using that restaurant exercise. It's about all these other things. Let me show you what I mean by these other things, the techniques. I'm going to go through the questioning one in detail in a moment. It is also about showing interest in the business. The only time we hear from them is when they want to sell us something. We only hear them when they want to renew our exhibition stand. Always find a reason to engage someone during the year. Invite them to that thought leadership event. Send them an article you've seen online that you thought might be of interest to them. Just show people that you care and you're thinking about them. Make sure you've connected with everyone in a year in a way that's just not part of the contract. But it's also about helping them achieve their business objectives. That's what I went through earlier. It's not just, did you enjoy the hospitality? Did you enjoy the exhibition stand? Help them to get the most of every single thing in the contract. Sit with them and help them to get the most out of that contract. And what you always want to position yourself as is not a seller, but a confidential advisor. You want to be the person that when you phone up, your partner goes, thank God, I'm really looking forward to having a coffee with that person. Because I know when I spend half an hour with that person, they've come with so many ideas and thoughts and challenged me on my thinking, really helped me to think about what we're going to achieve. All my best clients, my meetings around breakfast time, we just kind of sit around with my clients, just talking about their challenges and pop some new opportunities. But it's really me about asking them questions. And I think they have a meeting with me because they feel it's like a worthwhile kind of engagement of a conversation. I'm not really trying to sell anything at the beginning. But a sale will always come out if I've uncovered their needs and could suggest an adequate solution. So you want to be not a seller, but an advisor. Advise people about how to do things, how to get the most value. But let me get into some of the tools. You must have a partnership implementation plan with every corporate partner. So the National Gallery and National Australia Bank, when that partnership was signed, I sat in the boardroom at the National Gallery as the facilitator. We sat in the room. No one left the room till we're absolutely clear on what their objectives were and all the different ways we're going to, under each objective, how we're going to help them to solve their objective, who is going to do what when. There was no misunderstanding, absolute clarity. Partnerships, like life relationships, fail through a lack of understanding of shared objectives. Absolute clarity. I thought you wanted children. No, I didn't say I wanted children. Classic one to kick off, So should have had a partnership implementation plan, on the back, an appendix to the marriage contract. Reviews and workshops. Sometimes I go into organizations. I say, what are you doing? I'm writing the event report. Oh, did they ask for it? No, but we send it to everyone. Okay. Wouldn't it have been better to ask that organization to say, what information do you need to make a decision to renew? And what does that information need to tell you? What is that key information that you need? Sometimes people don't need, by all means, give them the generic report of this was what it looked like and numbers of people. But what is the information they need? So get into a mentality of reviews and workshops, face-to-face communication, what worked, what didn't work. Let's debrief this event rather than sending emails. I'm going to come on to Corporate Partners Workshop in a moment because it's so important. Leveraging workshops, sit down with your major partners and go, let's explore, let's get our marketing teams, your social media teams, our media teams, your sales teams, let's explore what we can do more about next year. And what you must have is a multiple champions engagement plan. Minimize your risk. So in all your corporate partners, get a spreadsheet and make sure you've got 2 champions in every corporate partner. Not just 2 contacts, 2 champions. If someone is a champion for you and they love your partnership and they leave, you're back to square one. And that is a way to invite people to events like those season launches and thought leadership at lunches to make sure you have more than one, not just contact, but champion in the organizations that you want as partners long term. And also you need a renewal segmented renewal schedule, so you're not just doing things at the last minute. You know the activity that you need to get together at certain times. Now, conscious of time, I just want to mention 2 things in particular on that list. One of the key reasons that partnerships fail was the lack of clarity of objectives and expectations. And often when I'm working with people, we go through the list of partners and I say, what were their objectives? What are their objectives? And nearly always we get to some people on the list and there's that kind of, I'm not actually sure, Make sure you know in absolute detail the objectives. And when I say objectives, I don't mean drive sales, customer engagement. That's better than nothing, but what specific metrics behind that? And also, what this does, it helps you to identify unrealistic expectations if you're clear on someone's objectives. So the classic one is car sponsors. Car sponsors make brilliant sponsors of events, but you do not sell cars. You can help someone to sell a car by making your audience aware of that car. You can help your audience to experience the car, to sit in the car. You can go on drive days. You can help tell the brand story to the cars. You can even give them a product offer if they buy that car. But you are not going to be sat there taking in orders over whether they want alloy wheels or an extended warranty. That is not your job. They have brilliant salespeople to do that. And this is where people go wrong, because the car company turns around and says, we didn't sell any cars, because they're expecting you to do that part of the process. What you have to say is, we will help you sell cars. Here is the process that we'll go through. But who is the person in your organization that can be the, in a sense, representative of your company, that we can feed all the inquiries in to them so then they can sell the cars? That is always the reason those car partnerships fail, because the car company says you didn't sell enough cars. There was not the thought through of the process of that, how that's going to happen. There's a missing link, which is getting someone from the car company to feed all the inquiries into. So one of the other issues is people being frustrated by the lack of understanding of their partner's objectives. Sometimes my clients say, I don't think the company actually knows what they want in terms of their sponsorship objectives. And that might be true. The trick is to elevate the conversation to a higher logical level. What you do, you move, to use an analogy, you don't talk about tea and coffee, you talk about beverages. You talk about apples and pears, you talk about fruit. If someone's reviewing their partnership or sponsorship strategy, it doesn't mean they've shut down their business. So if it was a car company and they say, oh, we're reviewing our strategy, say, thanks for sharing with that, but now let's talk about the audiences you're trying to sell cars to right now. Let's talk about what models are coming out. Let's talk about the brand message you're trying to convey. Let's talk about how you're trying to engage your existing customers, new customers, retention. The business does not shut down while they're doing the strategy. So the trick is to always elevate the conversation back up to their business objectives. It's a classic objection, reviewing our strategy. Also remember, people decide to renew, not companies. So what I mean by that is, there's always, in my observation, a really high turnover of staff in corporates, increasingly. If someone leaves, you've got to make damn sure that the new person comes in, you understand their interpretation of the objectives. No use getting to the renewal discussion and say, well, Mary's objective was this. Mary's gone. What about Jane, who's now in the role? What's her interpretation of what she saw as the desirable outcome? And by the way, a great question to ask any prospect or partner is, what does success look like? In 12 months' time, if you were to turn around and say this sponsorship or partnership with this event have been successful, what would it look like? And that's where your questioning technique really drills down into the specifics, the details about what success looks like as a partner of that event. Unless you know that, what are you working towards? It's a great question to ask people. The other thing to remember is that you might have had a contract with someone that you signed 3 years ago, 2 years ago, but their business has changed in that time. A lovely question to ask people, which I ask all my clients when I meet with them, is say, since we last met, can I ask you what's changed in your business? The reason I ask that question, it provides new opportunities. Because if someone says, oh, great news, we're just launching a new product, got a new sales team on board, or whatever it is, it starts to give you ideas about how you can grow the relationship to cover other things. The point is, clarity, objectives, and expectations, like in life, is absolutely crucial to the success of these partnerships. Now, one technique I just want to touch on briefly, which I'm doing more and more of. So I'll be at the Museum of Contemporary Art week after next to plan our 6th annual Corporate Partner Workshop, which looks like this. This year I'll be doing them with the Queensland Symphony for the 3rd time, Queensland Ballet for the 1st time, Screen Producers for the 1st time. I've done it for Landcare 3 times, Sydney Symphony twice, Cerebral Palsy twice, Botanic Gardens once. If you're not doing this, I have to tell you, you're not servicing your partners effectively as you could. What happened a few years ago, I was invited by one of my charity clients to their corporate partners evening. It was a waste of time. It was a waste of time. It was some thank yous and about 3 hours of networking. Complete waste of time, I think. What this is about, in the room are all the major corporate partners in Australia. This is the MCA, they've got Telstra, Qantas, Citigroup, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. What we do, 3 to 4 hours, morning, lunch or evening. It's a really facilitated, focused business workshop, which we tell them early on that it's about that. 10-minute view from the top. In this case, Liz Ann McGregor from the MCA will come in and say, thank you so much for what your funding has helped us achieve. This is where we're going in the future. Then we'll bring someone in who's been a kind of recipient. So it might be someone who's, in the MCA case, someone who's an artist. In a charity, it might be someone who's been homeless. The Queensland Symphony, it'll be maybe someone from the symphony or a ballerina at the ballet or whatever it is. Someone who gives the emotional connection along with the logical connection. But then we get into the main part of the workshop, and it requires some planning. But this is where we get usually 3 good partners who are really working the relationships from different objectives to come up and present in 5 minutes what their objectives are, what they've done in the partnership, what the outcomes are, and what the key learnings for the rest of the group. And then we go around the room objective to objective. So those 8 objectives I showed you. So we'd say, hey, Mary, I understand that you've used this partnership to really just, drive community engagement. Talk us through what you've done. And Frank, I understand you've done the same. How have you done that? What's your lessons? Now let's move on to sales. How have you used this relationship to drive sales? And what you'll find is you're asking these questions, and you've got major corporate partners sitting in the room, like the person from Emirates or whatever, writing away, because they're hearing from their peers about what their peers are doing. And then at the end of that, I go around the room saying, what's the one thing you're going to take away? And that is a really nice facilitation technique, because you hear all these partners basically showing that they've got something out of that particular part of the workshop. Then we have a coffee break, and then we do business to business. So we ask people in advance who they want to meet. We pair them up for 10 minutes. That's all you need, 10 minutes to explore how you can work together. Go around the room. What was your idea, your idea, your idea, your idea? Again, 10 minutes, loads of ideas. Swap over, do it again. In half an hour, all these ideas that you can follow up. When a wine company is getting a lead into an investment bank and then supplying the wine into the investment bank, they turn around and go, this is fantastic. I thought I was just a partner of this organization. I had a relationship with you. Thanks to you, we're now doing business with this investment bank. This is brilliant. We also talk about what's coming up, because people can only buy what they're aware of. Classic example there, cerebral palsy, when I did this, the Goodman Group, one of their partners, they let people know in the room they were looking for a major global event partner for September, the big fundraising event. Goodman Group said, I'll do that. They're now the global event partner. People can't buy something unless they're aware of it. And then we ask the question, what can we do differently? What are we not doing that we need to do better? Having the balls to ask that question is really good. The lady from Telstra in that workshop, I think it was that year, she stood up at the end and she said, can I just say thank you to the MCA for hosting this really informative session today? And can I say thank you for having the guts to ask the question of what you're not doing right? The fact that you're prepared to ask people, how can we, what are we not doing right, is really quite useful. This is 3 to 4 hours. What happens? We have drinks after lunch, after whatever. You haven't taken up too much time. The best bit, I haven't even got to yet, the best bit is within a month, you have one-on-one meetings with all your corporate partners. You sit in the room with them, you say, thank you so much for coming to the workshop. In the workshop, Richard facilitated. You heard a lot of different ideas. Let's talk about your objectives and maybe some of the ideas you heard to really kind of make sure that we are nailing your partnership moving forward. Are these successful? I think the clue is in the fact I'll be at the MCA next week, whatever, doing it for the 6th year running. I'm going back to Queensland to do the Queensland Symphony for the 3rd year running. If you're not doing this, and your partners are in these workshops, Telstra, Qantas, Citigroup, etc., come budget cut time, who are they going to get rid of? Do we get rid of that partner we never hear from? The only time we hear from them is when they're selling us something. They send us some kind of event report and an invoice. Or do we cut these other group who every year are really keen to engage us in a meaningful conversation about how we can get more out of the relationship and do business with other people? I know which one I'd keep. Highly important, highly effective corporate partnership servicing and retention technique, which if you're not doing, I think you should think about, because I know the power of them. And as I said, in that room, these people are experiencing it. So I can see on my monitor, it says 4 minutes, 43 seconds left. And I know lunch is left, so I need to be careful here. So just to kind of bring everything to a bit of a conclusion, I guess at the start of the day, I did talk about why events. And just remember what I said. Make sure you sell the category first. Have that page that talks about the power events, if required, to say to someone. And don't just go asking for money. Think about all those things that the person in front of you could do for you, which is going to be highly useful for you as an organization. Think about the Venn diagram, those 3 circles, process, competency, strategies. When you go back, think about where are we with our process? Where are we with our strategies? Where are we with our competencies? What's the barrier for us? That's the key. And then, because that will get you a good business development team. And then value. Don't just say gold. There's no value. What is the message they're looking to say? Don't just talk about hospitality and naming rights. Talk about what's going to do for someone. And when they have bought an exhibition space, work with them to get the most out of it. Work with them to get the most out of that table. Help them create the value. And when you have a partner on board, don't just think, oh, well, they're only giving us 20 grand. 20 grand for the next 10 years is 200 grand. And it's so much easier to retain someone than it is to go and find someone new. think about servicing using that restaurant analogy. It's not just delivering what's in the contract, it's all this other stuff Richard just talked about that is so important for making those people come back year after year after year after year after year, which is what you want, as long as you want them to come back. If you don't like them, get rid of them, you know? So the ones that you want to come back. Now, I've covered a lot of territory today. If this topic is of interest to you, I've got a special offer for you. If you go to my website, put in the code AMS, you'll get a 30% discount on either of my books. If you can't wait for that process, you can go to Amazon, iTunes, Kobo, and Google Play right now and get a digital version. The discount coupon doesn't apply to those because those bastards have already discounted it. Okay? So, full color in the sponsorship book, the BD one's in black and white, 280 pages, covers a hell of a lot of detail. You can have it on your iPhone. Before you go to a meeting, you can be looking at it there. If you don't like reading, you can come to a workshop. Early bird's on now, May, 2 workshops I run every year in Sydney, just up the road actually, in Hyde Park Forum, Elizabeth Street. How to attract, retain sponsored partners, 2-day workshop, maximum 16 people in the room for 2 days. Check out all the testimonials on the website. We go through everything over 2 days. If you're more broader BD role, I've got a 1-day workshop in May. If that doesn't float your boat, and because you don't like kind of workshops, you like receiving monthly business development tips. Every month, and I've been doing this for 15 years, putting out BD tips for people. Last week I put a video out on how to attract sponsors and partners. If you're interested in that, just put your card on that table here or here, and I'll send you the next edition. And also if you like a business card, I've got some here. But I just want to say, with 1 minute 54 seconds to go, thank you very much for listening to me. This is if you're from an event company, events are fun. They should be fun. It should be fun engaging sponsors, having sponsors. Hopefully today some of the things I've gone through can help you to have more enjoyable, more productive process of engaging those sponsors, more effective, more lucrative and all that kind of stuff, and to get sponsors to come back year after year after year. So thank you very much. I will be around over lunch if anyone wants to have a chat, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference, which I think goes on this afternoon. But thank you once again, and if you would like any of the notes, just put your business card there and I'll send them to you. Thank you very much.